Okay, I was listening to audio and I was brushing my teeth at night. I was minding my own business. And then all of a sudden, the lady that was reading the book does the voice of the creature that's in the woods.
Ugh.
And it got me. I
Yeah?
was like, ah! And I was like, oh no. So I had to stop. I had to pause because I was like, I can't continue brushing my teeth and be scared at the same time. Hi guys, this is What Have You Been Reading? My name is Karla.
This is Alex, and today we have a special guest, Leigh. Welcome to What Have You Been Reading?
Hi, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
We're excited that you're here, and I think it should have been the other way around, but Leigh brought us gifts, so we're going to open them.
I got you
yes.
guys a
Okay.
little something.
Okay. So we're
Should we
gonna
reveal at the same time?
Yeah, you
Okay.
can.
Okay.
Okay, so first I'm gonna describe my bag. My bag is multicolored and it has glitter lines. And
Mine is
then-
yellow with polka dots,
Oh, that's cute.
with orange tissue paper. I like that they're, like yours is green and matches with the green, and mine yellow and orange.
I was
So
going
cute.
to announce that I had green tissue paper.
I can't tell you
Spoiler.
guys like how gratifying it is that you're commenting on that because I did spend time thinking about each of your personalities and which one would be for which.
Oh, I love it.
And we got cute book. Oh,
They're
snap. These
adorable.
are soft.
I
Oh, it's
made
got a
them.
little- you made them?
Yeah.
They're
Okay,
so
we're going to have to
cute.
take
Thank
pictures
you.
of these and post them on Instagram. These are adorable. Thank you, Leigh.
You're welcome.
And thank you for being willing to
cute.
come onto our amateur but very professional.
We are professional women. You can't see it, but I have a briefcase in my imagination.
Just talking about all of our audio challenges and how we really hope that we'll get this figured out and it'll be so popular we'll have an audio person someday.
Oh my God, please,
If
an
you're out
audio
there.
person. If you want to
Help us help you. You'll get better audio.
Jeez. We suck a little.
Hey, episode 11.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
still here.
We're still here.
We're still here.
All right.
Okay.
Regardless of how bad we sound sometimes, and remember that episode where we sounded
Only
really
we sound
weird?
bad audio, not like what we're saying. We're amazing.
We are.
You guys are amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leigh. We should have Leigh all the time to throw a little
Is there a
pep
like
in our
cheerleader position available?
filled.
Nice. Okay. So one thing that Shook told me that I should tell you about,
Uh-huh.
and that I was supposed to tell you on
Oh,
the
boy.
previous episode,
And you didn't.
but now you're going to hear it too, and you can, you
Sure.
can tell us all about what you think.
Okay.
So, okay.
What do I do?
Okay, so I emailed Shook that
You
I
had
had
a separate conversation with them?
totally.
Okay.
She
So
went behind your back.
I
I know.
emailed Chuck, like, it was on an email thread that you and I were on.
Yeah, and then you took me off.
Yeah, I did. Because I was like,
Oh, God, I'm so scared.
no, this has everything to do with me and nothing to do with you.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, bring it out.
So I emailed and I was like, I'm taking Alex out of this because she doesn't like spooky.
Oh,
So
okay.
then, and I was like, I don't know, if you like spooky, whatever. Shook likes spooky.
Okay.
So I told Shook that like this reading scary stories, which as you heard in the last episode, I'm not as scared as I should be. But whatever, I am getting nightmares. I am back to the
Ugh.
nightmares.
Which you like?
No, I don't like the nightmares.
Okay.
This is why I stopped reading scary stories for so long.
This is a conundrum to me, Karla. Because you really want to read spooky, but spooky gives you nightmares, but you don't want the nightmares, so maybe you don't want the spooky. Maybe you need to find another genre.
I love spooky.
Okay, then you're going to have to deal with the nightmares.
So the point is that the nightmare, okay, in the nightmare, there was a wedding going on, okay? And
Okay.
I was a bridesmaid.
Ooh.
And the person getting married was an actress who I won't name because it's kind of creepy because the actress dies. So
In the dream?
in the dream.
Okay.
So I won't name the actress. So I was the bridesmaid there along with other girls.
Is
And
it an
then-
actress that you really respect?
It's an actress.
Did the dream relate to the story you read?
Not at all. However, I had been talking the night of my nightmare. I had been talking about that hockey player that got hit by the drunk driver and how they were supposed to be, because the brother also died.
The one who
Okay.
was bike riding?
Yeah, and how they were supposed to be groomsmen for their sister's wedding the next day.
Oh,
So I had been
ouch.
talking about that, and the person that I was talking to, she had also had a friend whose mom died the week before she was getting married. So we were talking about, what do you do during these situations? Like, do you still
Do you
get
postpone
married?
the wedding? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that weddings were on my brain.
Yeah.
And then spooky was in my brain.
Yeah.
And then this actress is just like a toss-up. I don't
Okay.
know. So I was the bridesmaid. And then something happened where I died, but I was not dead. I was either like, I was like a vampire / zombie because I wasn't creepy.
That's kind of cool.
No.
No.
So then...
Okay.
So then my boyfriend in the dream, he also had this problem. So no problem. Like, we could still be together. And he didn't mind that I was
Was he
semi-dead.
handsome?
I don't know. He's not an important...
Because you know how we feel about handsome men. Jeff texted me when he listened to that podcast and he said, I feel personally attacked.
Oh, yeah, you have to pick an ugly man. So then...
I didn't. Sorry.
But he's one of the good handsome ones.
Yes.
Same here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, fine. Good.
They are out there.
Like oblivious. I think if they know they're handsome,
Yeah.
then it's the problem.
Yes.
That's where you have the total
The
a-hole
inflated
type.
Yeah,
ego.
yeah.
Or even if they're not that good looking, but they think they are.
Oh, that's
Oh,
worse. Because
right?
it's like, where's
Doubling
this coming
down.
from?
Right?
It's like, where do you get this?
Where do you come off? Anyhow,
So-
wedding, zombie, boyfriend.
So I was dead. So obviously I had to excuse myself from the wedding so as not to kill everybody, right?
yeah.
And then, okay, this is the part where it's stupid because a man that was holding a blouse with pearl buttons came up to me, and he
I love
told,
the detail.
gotta have the detail.
Yeah.
And he told me that my friend was also dead, and so was the rest of the party. So no problem, I could go and be a bridesmaid again.
Wait.
So I was like, yes.
I have a question about your dream. In your dream, you're visualizing?
I was going to say the same thing.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
I mean, like you
So
guys.
how is your dream? Is it not a vision or is it like a thought?
It might be a brainstorm. I don't know.
Oh.
Because you don't visualize when you're reading, right?
No.
You guys talked about that. Like, you can't
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah.
But you have
But in your
dreams.
dream, you
Oh,
have detail,
very
like, of the pearl
detailed.
buttons and
I
stuff.
have
This is
very
so
detailed dreams.
interesting to me.
Very
Okay.
detailed dreams.
Let's figure out how this circles back to an email that I was excluded from.
Oh,
You
yeah.
were excluded because you don't like spooky.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
And then at the end, Shook said that you would probably get a kick out of it, and I should tell you. So anyway, so I get told by this man with a pearl button blouse that my friend is also dead, and you know that I can rejoin the wedding party. And I was like, yes, cool. So then I go to the venue and I see my friend, and my friend is like super excited to see me because obviously I had said, oh, I can't be part of
yes.
the wedding anymore.
So we're excited you're at the
Right?
wedding.
So she comes up to me and she hugs me, and I'm like, oh my God, you're dead too. So in celebration, I bite her.
Oh.
Wow.
You looked just like the sister from Schitt's Creek. That little mannerism you just did.
And then, like, I'm confused because she's horrified in the dream.
Well, yes.
And I'm like, what's the problem? We're both dead already. And then she's like, I'm not dead. And then we find out that the man with the pearl button blouse lied to her and told her that I was actually okay. So he totally wanted this to happen. I don't know why. The man with the button blouse never comes back into the game. So anyway,
Karla, you should write your own spooky books.
so anyway, now she's dying because I bit her. And now, you know,
No, there's no wedding.
well, no, because like she's going to bite everybody at her wedding.
Yeah.
I woke up knowing that. That she's
Yikes.
It's
gonna-
interesting in dreams, right? Like when you know something's going to happen.
Yeah. I know that like she's already thinking, I'm not going to do this by myself. And she's going to bite
Yeah.
everybody.
Well, way to go, Karla.
How does that have to do with the email?
That
Oh, I should
Nick said
told
at
Shook.
the end that you
Just
should
that you
tell
told
me.
him this story and you didn't tell her, but now you're telling her?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because I was
All right.
told that I should.
How do you feel? Are you glad that she confessed it to you now?
I am. It honestly opens up so many questions about the visualization and dreaming and reading and whether
Sometimes I can
maybe
tell
in
you
your
what.
subconscious you are. So maybe it's just a block when you're like conscious. Anyhow. Okay. So Leah's here because she brought up a discussion question that I think we should tackle first, and then we can go through what we've been reading.
Let's do.
Okay. Go ahead, Leigh.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
So I messaged Alex a couple of weeks ago, just knowing that we like to read and you guys have this podcast and whatever. And I asked her, I said, I just recently read these like Amazon stories. And have you guys read those?
Were they the Valentine's Day ones?
No, they were like a series by Mindy Kaling.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah, and there was 6 of them, and the shortest one was like 11 pages, but the longest one I think
short.
was maybe like 29 pages, something
Yeah.
like that. And so in Goodreads, it just marks each one as a book.
Yeah.
And I was like, do you really feel like these count as a book? Like together, they would totally be
As a
one book,
collection.
as a
Yeah.
collection. And if you've read other Mindy Kaling books, her books are kind of like that. It's like sort of a collection of short
Yeah.
stories about her life and kind of tied together.
Okay.
Very entertaining. I highly recommend her if you haven't read.
What was that book
but,
called? I think I read it.
Is everyone
memoir?
hanging out without me?
I haven't read it
That
yet.
one's
but I
good,
want
but she
to.
has a couple. I can't remember. I've read a couple of them.
Yeah.
But this was like an Amazon short story thing, and I think on the one hand, it promotes reading, right?
Yeah.
Because they're short and easy. But then it just kind of bothered me that like Goodreads was like, check, it's a book.
So I'm going to backtrack a little bit because Karla, I know you don't keep track of like your books and stuff.
Oh, is that why it's a bother?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yes. So I keep a list. I have like an Excel sheet where I kind of track what I've read. And then on my personal Instagram, I keep like the number that I've read this year. I just started this last year when I really transitioned to a Bookstagram Instagram account rather than like more of a personal one. But then people use Goodreads a lot to track their stuff. I started using Bookmori. I don't know if you use that app at all.
So I use Goodreads all the time. I've been using it for several years.
Yeah.
So what I like about it is you can keep a list of what you want to read, and something that I have in common with you, Alex, is I forget stuff that I've read.
Yes.
I either forget the plot or I forget
Like characters.
I will forget I've read the book.
Yeah.
This just happened to me like a month ago. I picked up a book and I was all excited to read
You're
it.
like, wait a second.
And I went to my Goodreads to like select it as starting to read, and it was like rated, and I was like, oh my
Oh,
god, I read this like
Had you
4
liked
years
it?
ago.
Did you like it before?
I rated
can't
it like
remember.
4 stars, but I had to spend a little time like trying to remember. Yeah.
This
So
is a
that
funny
part's helpful.
kind of side story. We watched Matilda last night with the boys, and at the very end, Matilda's talking to the teacher, and obviously she's like super smart, and she's like 5, right? Have you seen Matilda?
Is that the one with the lady that forces the kid to eat the chocolate cake?
Yes.
Yes.
So Matilda's 5, right? And she's read all of the books in the library, and she's super smart. And Johnny, who is 4, he looks at me and he goes, how does she remember everything? Like, we read books and we don't remember things, which I thought was such a great observation for a 4-year-old, but also a reflection that he's my child. I was like, yeah, I don't remember. But Matilda, I was like, well, I think some people, and I tried to explain to him photographic memories, right? Like some people
Yeah.
just really do remember all the tiny details. Do you think you have a photographic memory, Karla? Because you remember a lot.
No, I don't.
It's not photographic.
No.
It's just really
You
good.
just have a good memory.
Sometimes, yeah. With certain things, yeah.
Yeah.
Some
Like, I
things
can
I have a
remember-
great memory, but
Yeah.
reading, I don't know. It's sort of a meditative activity for me, so it's sort of, I think, once I've finished it,
Yeah.
in a while, I don't process it. I process it differently than other information. I don't
Yeah.
know.
But so yeah, I think a lot of people that are really into reading and reading communities keep track of what they read, and they'll use something to track that, whether it's what is that word?
Goodreads. yeah.
Goodreads. Bookmori is another app that I use, or like, I also have like a little Google sheet where I keep track of stuff. But to some people, their book counts are really important. And like you mentioned, you had a goal for the year.
Yeah.
And some people will set like, I want to read X amount of books for the year.
And Kindle and Libby also track it if you want to have like different types. So, and you can set up different shelves. But what I like about it too is if I hear about a book, like even you guys mentioned something on here, and I'm like, oh, I would like that. I just go and add it to my to read list,
Yeah.
which it does have over 600 books on it. But I do like the tracking aspect of it. It's
Yeah.
just like because I'll forget what book it was I wanted to read.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And it is kind of gratifying. I just set a goal of 52 books a year, so 1 book a week.
Yeah.
And every year I meet it, but sometimes it's like in December I meet it.
Yeah.
But this
you
year
did
I
it
already
quick this
met
year.
it, not because of the Mindy Kaling books. I met it before.
Let's talk about how you count
the
those
last
books.
one right before I started reading those. But it just felt like, yeah, because it counts that app counts that as 1 book.
Yeah.
Or as each story as 1 book. So, like, it's a 30-page story a book. What if you did buy, like, a novella? I have done that, too, where they're short, right?
Yeah, I remember going into kind of a rabbit hole a while back about the difference between, like, what defines a novel, right? And it has to do with the page length versus, a novella or a short story.
I can tell you this.
Tell me
when
this.
When I was reading the Akatar books, and I bought the 4th book, and then I saw how short it was, I was like, oh,
Did you feel cheated?
no.
That is the other. The only way I can justify this to myself is I have read several books this year, or many that are over 500 or over 800 pages.
It should have counted as multiples.
And so I would say like an average book is probably like about 300 pages, right? So it probably averages out in the end.
Yeah.
I feel like you're
it really
trying to
justifying,
you're justifying these main details.
This is why I had to text Alex about it. I was like, how can this count? I don't know. I wish they had a separate shelf for that or something.
I agree with you. I think it does feel kind of weird to count it as a book when it is such a short story.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the alternative is, right? Yeah, I think having a separate category.
Yeah.
Maybe for short stories. I don't read a lot. I've read a couple short stories and realized it's not my favorite genre. What?
I love a short story.
I feel like I'm just getting into a story and I'm getting acquainted with the characters, and then it's just boom, boom, boom.
I feel like short stories really, because of their shortness, they have to have like a punch.
Yeah.
They pack a punch, and it's like, it works so well, especially with like scary short stories. You're like, whoa.
I think maybe that would be different. I read a series of short stories. I think it was in February. There were all of these kind of romance readers that teamed up and had, I think it was 5 or 6 different short stories with interrelated characters. But it was one of those situations where I'm like, it was like a very rushed romance. Like, oh, you met, and then this happened, and then you're together. I feel like it didn't allow for the development. And maybe it is the type of story. I think maybe a spooky story would lend itself better to a short story than like a romance where I'm trying to...
I have read several collections of short stories with some do stick with you despite my bad memory.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I can remember one I read where like this whole town just goes to sleep for the winter.
Ooh.
It's so weird. And it does pack a punch, and it didn't feel those short stories.
What's the name of it?
I don't remember.
Oh my god.
I will find out. I did like all of the stories by this. Oh, the Terranauts. We were the Terranauts. Something with Terranauts in the title for the whole book.
So I don't think it's the town mouse and the country mouse short story.
No.
Well, yeah, I do agree that they do stick with you. There's a short story. Eva is inside her cat. Holy cannoli. Oh. So basically, she is so beautiful that she's over it. Okay? She's over
being beautiful?
She's over being beautiful.
It must be really hard.
It seems like it sucked for her.
Yeah.
So she ends up, I think she dies, if I remember correctly, and her spirit goes into her cat. And then she's walking around the world as her cat, and her body is buried underneath the orange tree. And like the thought of her body becoming part of what feeds into the orange tree. Ooh. And then the oranges that people eat, it screws you up. Ooh. And it's so good, and it's not creepy. Don't make that face. But it's good. It's a little bit like, it does make you want to like squeeze into yourself a little bit, but at the same time, it's so beautifully written because it's freaking Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
Oh, yeah.
And he just has a way with words, especially if you read them in Spanish.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to freak you out, but you pretty much, everyone drinking water, you're drinking everyone in the world's spit. You are drinking other people's ashes. I mean, I know, just try not to think about it. It's kind of disgusting.
Did you ever watch Soul, the Disney movie Soul?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
There's a soul that goes into, like, they switch bodies with the cat. So it was kind of a funny scene where the cat's speaking as a person, yelling at his body that has the other soul.
But he's meowing.
Mixed up.
Is he meowing instead of speaking?
Well, to the two characters, they're talking to each other, but then the people around them hear the cat mewing. Meowing? But the body can hear the cat talking.
That's so cute.
It is cute. It's a cute movie. The tree thing reminded me of The Island of Missing Trees. Have either of you read that book? I really loved that book.
Is it about dead people being underneath trees?
It's kind of about a tree being, like, containing souls, kind of.
That creeps me out.
No, it was, like, in a really sweet way. But there's, like, this tree that was really important in, like, the island where they came from. And then the dad took part of the tree when they emigrated to America and, like, grew the tree there. And it's really cute.
Oh, that sounds cool.
That sounds
It's about,
emotional.
I think it's, like, Greek or Turkish. Which I thought was also really interesting from, like, a historical perspective. It talked a little bit about, the issues that that island had, because it's kind of a divided island, I think. Now I feel like I'm talking a bunch of gibberish because I forgot all about it, obviously.
Well, that's how I
really
feel
good.
about this book, but I looked it up. It's Life Among the Terranauts by Caitlin Horrocks.
Ooh, Life
And then
Among the Terranauts.
That's just one of the short stories in it, but a lot of the short stories in it I like, but I think it's just a certain author, maybe if you read them together, they're a collection of short stories.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes
I
there's a
don't-
through line too,
Yeah, I don't know that we'll get to a definitive answer on whether they count or not, but
I say they don't.
you say they don't.
I say they don't.
So
That's not a book.
but there's no way to unmark. Well, I guess you could unmark it on Goodreads.
If
Yeah,
you're
I just
being-
think Goodreads, if you're out there, I know you're listening, Goodreads. You need to make another category.
For the short stories.
That's right. I mean,
And-
they're already hooked up to Kindle and everything. They can do
Yeah.
it.
And sponsor us because we brought you up.
I know. We'll talk about you again. Maybe we'll get Karla to start using it and she can talk about her journey.
Oh, I'm so bad at tracking stuff. So bad.
You don't have to track it. I mean, one drawback I think to tracking is sometimes that's why I never set my goal more aggressively, because I don't want to feel like I have to read or I'm in a hurry to
Yeah.
get this done. It's something I enjoy, and as soon as I have to do it, I'm not going to enjoy it as much.
I've kind of been exploring that a little bit now between my like Bookstagram and the podcast, and now I'm like, oh, I like my buddy read. I'm like, I have to get that done, and I want to read this other thing, and I'm starting to feel a little like
Pressure.
and I took off a little bit of time because I had a little crochet project that I was working on, and it felt good to have something else to put my energy towards and not feel like this constant. But I love reading, and I do really enjoy finishing all of these different books. I feel like I'm exploring this new balance.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I have a lot of hobbies, and it's like you can only do one thing at a time,
Yeah.
right? I mean, maybe you could crochet and listen to a podcast or something, but
I was just talking to Jeff yesterday how I can't like multitask and reading, like listening
Right.
to music. I feel like people listen to music a lot while they read, and I've tried it a few times and I
Oh
can't.
no, that sounds terrible.
I can't, like, even like background
Yeah.
music, like cutesy, whimsical. It distracts me.
yeah, I get distracted like sometimes if I'm like somewhere. I read a lot on, I think I've been able to read more because I read a lot on my phone. If
Yeah.
I'm reading a Kindle book and I'm like waiting in line to pick the kids up at school
Yes,
or
at the
whatever.
grocery store.
Right. And so you can just read for a few minutes, but sometimes it's really distracting that there's talking or music or something going on. And yeah.
Yeah.
I can read a book with music in the background, but only if it's music that I didn't choose. So,
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so like at a grocery store, or if I'm like today I got to the restaurant early, and so I started reading because it was not music that I chose, so it's
Yeah.
not music that I'm invested in listening to.
Yeah.
So for me, that's okay.
Yeah.
But if I were to put music on, then I'm gonna want to sing along.
Yeah, I just think it takes a little extra focus. And yeah, reading is just really something where it's hard to do more
Yeah.
than one thing at once. I agree.
Yeah. Any Hoosers?
Speaking of short stories,
Yeah.
I listened to Jeff's recommendation.
The boy in the box, or boy in
Yeah,
iron
the
box or
pit
something?
in the pit in the box, or the box in the
Oh,
pit.
because there's different titles, right?
But I think that that's the series name, and then I don't know. The Guillermo del Toro and Chuck Hogan,
Not Hulk Hogan.
not Hulk Hogan. Those stories that are on Kindle and Audible.
Yeah.
I started looking at those, and I read the first one, and I was expecting it to be a full-blown story,
Yeah.
and then it wasn't. I didn't know that it was multiples because I didn't pay attention because I'm a bad listener. So I didn't.
Because you don't read the description.
That too. So I didn't know that it was a series, so I thought that it was just gonna be like a one thing, and then I was gonna get an ending. And I was like, yeah, let's find out what's going on over here. And then you don't find out what's going on over here. And I was like, well, what is this thing? And then I started thinking, okay, what is this thing inside this thing that's like making the wolves get creeped out because the wolves are creeped out.
Yes.
And then I think it's going to be a vampire.
So,
I think it's going to be a vampire.
are there
in there.
more
It
stories?
could be a werewolf.
Are there
A lot
more
of times
stories
wolves
in
get
that?
freaked out in stories
By
where there's
other
a
wolves.
werewolf.
Ooh. So are there more stories in that series that you haven't read?
All of them. I
Oh,
only got
okay.
through one, and then I think I'm like 5 pages into the second one.
Okay, so you've got a ways to go to find out what
Yeah.
happens. Did
Yeah.
you like the first one?
I did.
Okay.
You know what I thought? I thought that because I'm not reading it. Well, I am reading along because you can get the book format, and then you can also get the audio.
Okay.
And then the audio like highlights the word that it's on, so I'm following it.
Ooh.
I love it. So I'm doing that, and one thing that I noticed is that like when I started listening to it, I thought it was like a Russian sounding Ron Perlman.
I can't picture that.
Do you know Ron Perlman's
no,
voice though?
I don't know, Ron.
I can't
Perlman.
imagine it either.
Okay, it sounds a little bit Ron Perlman-y.
Okay.
If he were Russian. And then I saw, what did I see? I was catching up on the Alien movies again.
Yes.
And Alien movie number 4, Resurrection. Ron Perlman is in that movie, and I was like, wait a second, let's listen to that voice. And you know what? It's not Ron.
It's not it at all?
Oh wait, did he do Hellboy?
Yes.
Okay.
He's Hellboy.
My husband would kill me for not knowing that, so
Good. You got some brownie points.
So there you go.
There you go.
I hope he listens to this.
He has to. Moral
So-
support.
Yeah.
Um,
Anywho, that's one of the books that I read,
Yes.
except that I said that it doesn't count as a book. But
Because it's a short story.
I read
I mean, I think it
I did-
counts in the sense of like you said, it's great to encourage people to read, and it's still this thing that you enjoy doing. I don't think it takes away from
Right.
the fact that you've
yeah.
And if
completed
you're
something.
if you're not a big reader, you can like read something short and quick and
Yeah.
enjoy it, and maybe it'll get you more into reading. You know, if you're someone
Yeah.
who sometimes you meet people who are like, oh yeah, I'd love to read, I just don't have the patience or I don't have the time
Yeah.
or whatever.
Those
And
are
if you're one of
perfect.
those people, maybe a short story is a great
Yeah.
way to go. You know.
The Goodreads, we need that category.
And if you have Amazon Prime, I know Amazon you're listening to, they're a sponsor of this podcast. Now you can get free books, like free with your Prime membership.
Yes,
So
yeah.
that those mini Kaling books were free books that I was able to
I should
read.
check those out.
Yeah.
But I wonder how you would. I'm kind of going down the rabbit hole. Even if you had a separate category on Goodreads, would you say like X amount of short stories count as one book, or would you just not count them at all? in
I would
your
just
count?
not count it
Not
at
count
all.
them
You
at all.
don't count them
Yeah.
all.
Okay.
That's
But I have-
extracurricular.
I do have a question
like
for you
it.
guys. You've mentioned the buddy read thing a few times, but I don't quite know what it is. Is it you guys are each picking a book and then like your followers can read along with you?
Yes.
Oh, I'll
So we
have to do
figured
that
that
next
was like
time.
a thing to
Yeah.
get people to read along with us rather than just hearing us talk about a book after we've
Yeah.
read it. And maybe listeners that follow along can then be a little bit more invested in the discussion
Sure.
of the podcast afterwards.
Because they've read the same story and they know what we're talking
Yep.
about when we're bringing up specific points.
And I don't think
It's
we've
like-
nailed it yet, but we're trying to kind of post kind of discussion questions or topics as we're reading the book.
Oh, I love that
Yeah.
idea.
And I'm not as active.
Well, you're not a Instagram.
I'm not an Instagrammer.
Yeah, the buddy reads, we're hoping, it gains a little traction, and depending on the title, maybe people will join and you can have
Yeah.
a little more.
And I tend to spoil things, so it's better
Yeah.
for people to know what they're getting into.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Well, thanks for explaining that. I just, for some reason, I missed the explanation, and you guys have mentioned it a couple
Maybe
of
we
times.
didn't.
So I don't know. I was kind
Did
of like,
we?
what's this buddy read thing?
Maybe we just said this is our buddy read and didn't explain what a buddy
Oh,
read
snap.
is.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I just didn't know if it was like some other thing you guys were doing, or
No.
you guys were reading a book together that you were both reading.
Well,
or
we
I
just
didn't
said this
know.
on the last episode, is that I think at some point we should, Karla and I, read the same book
Yeah.
so that we have kind of that common
Yeah.
discussion.
Or you
Which
guys-
sometimes we have from our book club, but not always.
You guys could each pick your favorite book, and the other person could read it.
Yeah.
I don't know. You might have
I
to read
wonder how
Gone
I
with
would
the
do.
Wind, though.
Okay.
Okay, would you ever read a scary story that I asked you to read?
I-
No, you wouldn't.
I would try.
And I would feel bad asking you.
We should maybe explore each other's genres.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
I apologize in advance to both of you.
So I don't know, Karla, if this is something you want to discuss or not, but Leigh did mention that she had some kind of deep knowledge on Gone with the Wind. Like you said, you wrote a paper.
Yeah, so I used to read Gone with the Wind like every year, and
Oh,
I
whoa.
feel your pain. Like, I haven't read it in like 10 years now, mostly because of the racist thing. But I think she probably was racist. I did write a paper about Margaret Mitchell in either high school or college, I can't remember.
Yeah.
And she grew up in the South. She was born after the Civil War, though. She was born in, 1900. And she did grow up in a family that, suffered the negative consequences after the war, Reconstruction, all of that. Yeah, I go back and forth, but what I always love about that book is just the strong character of Scarlett O'Hara. And she's not a perfect person, and that's a great thing about the book.
Yeah.
And back when it was written, there weren't female heroines. There weren't,
Yeah.
that was back in the time of also similar books. I would compare it to Tolstoy, which I know is a big ask, but it's the same kind of a sprawling saga, right, of her life and talking about what things looked like, what it was like, what the farmland was like. Tolstoy, you can fall down in
narrative.
these long pages of like what farming.
Yeah.
And I think Gone with the Wind has a little bit of that. I don't know if it's explicitly biased. I don't know if she's trying to say people are this or that or anything like that. I think she's just telling a story from a certain experience.
Yeah.
I don't think that she's trying to say necessarily, but I do think that she believed that unfortunately that like black people were inferior to her. Maybe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's obviously in the story.
It's very clear.
They treat people, they are like their pets, kind of. Like they're animals, they're not as smart. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Awful.
But
she does
it's
pay
weird.
consequences sometimes for her behavior and her thoughts that way. That Scarlett O'Hara.
Not in terms of, there is one point where Peter, her aunt's butler, is driving her coach, and northern ladies that have moved to the South speak about Peter in a really derogatory way, and Scarlett finally has had enough of it, of them talking badly about Peter while he's there listening to them.
Yeah.
And she says, Peter is family. And they go off. And Peter is like, well, that's an obvious thing. You didn't do much for me.
Yeah.
Right.
That's just like, that's not defending me. That's not taking up for me. That's just like the basics.
The bare minimum.
And it's straight. That's the only consequence that I see.
Yeah. Well,
her
there's a whole thing where she
suffer.
gets like attacked in the wood, but I guess that kind of reinforces her.
Yeah, but that's not a
But
consequence of
she
her.
does have
thoughts.
consequences for other parts of her behavior.
Oh yeah, she totally does.
And so there is some imagining that maybe she could have grown more and developed more. I don't know. I mean, she's a complicated character.
She is.
And I think that's a hard thing with us modern time, is sometimes to be able to read some of those older books and what do we do with them?
Yeah.
I personally haven't gone back and read Gone with the Wind because I feel like that's not appropriate and not something I want to be feeding myself. But on the other hand, you can't just shut a blind eye to that's the way people behave. That's
Yeah.
also ignoring history, right? So I don't
You
know,
can
but
also read these narratives while understanding that you don't agree with these narratives.
Yeah.
and I mean, certainly in modern times we have books where there's characters who are jerks, racists, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes they're more didactic, right? They're telling us this
Yeah.
person's a bad person.
Whereas this is from their perspective, so
Right.
they don't.
She
see
is
it
the
as
heroine
something
of the
bad.
book.
Yeah,
But she does get her comeuppance with others' behavior.
she does.
She doesn't realize till the end of the book that she's in love with Rhett Butler, and then he's like, "Sorry,
Yeah.
bye."
Yeah.
Bye.
And
Yeah.
he put up with her for so long, although I'm not like he's the greatest, but she realizes she was in love with him all along.
Yeah.
I don't know. There are a lot of layers. I like that she's a strong female lead.
I like that the fact that she has this laser vision in getting what she wants. And at the beginning of the book, the laser vision of getting what she wants is getting a man that is like Ashley.
Yeah.
She wants
Yep.
Ashley. And then when she can't have Ashley, the laser vision is like, I'm going to
Shifting.
get some revenge. And I'm going to marry a man that I shouldn't marry. So that is so small.
Yeah.
And then her evolution into her laser vision becomes, I'm going to save my family. I'm going to make us be comfortable. I'm
Yeah.
going to make sure that my children are comfortable. And she does evolve in that way, but she's still very small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Throughout the book, she's a small person.
Yeah, but almost like I think, that's also the interesting thing about her character.
Yeah.
She wrestles with that somewhat, in that she
She wants to think about it tomorrow.
right, right. Well, she feels like she's doing what she has to do to get through every day. I think she knows she's not the best person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the way she treats Melly and other things, and certainly sometimes it comes to the forefront and she realizes. But she always has to keep shoving it down because she feels like she just needs to get
She
through.
has other things to do.
Yeah, but there is a sequel.
I read it.
Yeah, I did too.
It was so bad.
I thought it was okay, but I only read it once,
It
not
was
like
a
10
different-
times.
It was a different author.
Yes.
And,
But I think she tried to correct some of those like personality flaws, I guess. But
That's tough
yeah.
when you have something that big. It's that popular. Well, what have you been reading recently, Leigh?
Well, earlier this week, I finished the book Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. And that book follows two roommates that were girls so they're in their early 20s. Their names are Frances and Bobby. The main character is Frances. They met in school, and in high school they dated each other, and then they became roommates. And then I think at the start of the book, I can't remember, they kind of go off and on being roommates or not being roommates, but they're just at that point then roommates who are friends and are no longer dating each other. They're also like art partners. Like Frances writes poetry, and Bobby's, I don't even really know what Bobby does. She's very good looking.
Too handsome.
I know. I think she supposedly does something art as well, but they kind of talk about it in the book. Like Frances writes all the poetry, and then they do like the spoken word poetry together.
Okay.
They do these like performances, and it's in Britain, so you might like it. There's a lot of
Lots of tea?
Oh no, I'm sorry. It's in Ireland,
Oh,
but still lots of
still,
rain,
yeah.
lots of cup of tea. And then Bobby meets this woman named Melissa, who's in her like early to mid 30s, and she's married to a guy named Nick, who's an actor and very handsome. But it seems like their relationship isn't the greatest, Melissa and Nick. And eventually Frances starts having an affair with Nick.
Ding dun dun.
And yeah, but Frances, I don't know. The whole thing is just, she's kind of young and stupid, and I guess that's kind of part of the point of the book.
Yeah.
Nick just sort of seems like a drift. He doesn't really know what he wants.
Yeah.
He'd been depressed. It kind of comes out throughout the course of the book that he had been very seriously depressed the year before. Melissa had an affair with his best friend, so it's not like
Oh my
she's
gosh.
perfect. I
Yeah.
know. But all these people, they are like all done together. You suspect the whole time that maybe Melissa and Bobby are having an affair, but then it sort of seems like the book says they're not. But it's hard to tell because the perspective is Frances's perspective, so it could
Is it
be
only
like
from one?
unreliable narrator or
Yeah.
not knowing, And I don't know, at the very end of the book, it's sorry, spoiler alert, but
ahead.
so Frances had broken up with Nick. She's still not even being another theme of the book is she finds out throughout the book that she has endometriosis. And she's having all these pains like throughout the book, and finally toward the end kind of figured that out. But then even after she finds out, she doesn't want to tell anybody that she has it.
Yeah.
So it's like she can't be honest with other people. She can't be honest with herself.
That's not an illness that's like bad though.
What is endometriosis?
It's well, hold
it
on.
skin?
It's something
It's like
that,
your
no,
uterus.
It's your uterus.
Oh.
I don't know. There's a lot of bleeding and a lot of pain. I think it gets little cysts in it or something.
Yeah, it's
I don't
not
know.
something that you
But it's
would
really
be like
painful.
ashamed
Yeah.
of.
Like heavy periods?
Yes. Yeah.
Disorder in which tissue similar to the tissue that lines the uterus grows outside and in places where it doesn't belong. That's
right. It's just weird
that.
I don't know. Like, they knew she was going to go to the doctor and stuff, so.
Yeah.
But, so by the end of the book, at some point she had broken up with Nick, and then she gets back together with Bobby. And then she starts deciding she's going to have an affair with Nick again, and he's like, yeah, sure. Basically, that's what it leaves you with, and I was really annoyed at the end of the book.
I hate endings like that.
It just felt like, I mean, I don't mind sometimes when there's kind of like, you don't know what's going to happen. It doesn't need to be in a perfect bow. But it just, like, sort of like these people went through kind of being crappy. No one really matured or developed.
Yeah, like, what was the point of the book, right?
Was it just kind of a slice of life and it wasn't a very
Yeah, I think it's just kind of about being young and dumb, and you do dumb things and you repeat dumb things, maybe. Because she and Bobby are, like, early 20s.
Okay.
But, yeah, I don't know. It's sort of, I have been really excited because that one's really popular. I had to wait a long time.
So
I checked it out on Libby.
Popular books sometimes do not deliver.
You are right. Absolutely right.
How many stars would you give it?
I did give it 4 stars out of 5.
You rated it high.
Like, not into it.
Because, I mean, it was, I don't know. I often think about the author's effort and what they were trying to do. And it was, at least, it was well written and stuff. Okay. And the characters were interesting.
I've struggled sometimes with my, like, rating a book because, yeah, you want to be, like, empathetic towards the author, but also I didn't really like your book, but it feels mean to give it a low rating.
Well, that's why I remember when you were like, should we rate these books? And I was like, no.
You guys.
But then I wanted to.
I rated a book that was by a local author in Ventura, and I think I gave it 3 stars, and he messaged me and said,
that's inappropriate.
I'm sorry you didn't like my book. How can I do better? And it was really nice. It was it was a great conversation.
And I think that's different from being like, why, or making someone feel
it wasn't
guilty.
attacking.
I mean, if someone's trying to improve their, like, what they're doing for a livelihood, I think that's pretty brave.
Yeah, I mean, he was very nice about it, but it was, like, sort of interesting. I mean, I was actually excited. I was like, wow, I don't even usually rate or comment. Yeah. I know, I rate them all, but I don't comment on them.
Like, you could have directly affected that person's, like, future writing style or technique and maybe, like, helped improve where he was lacking.
Right, I was like, wow, no one's ever messaged me. That's so cool. Yeah.
I had an author message me on Instagram because I posted one of their books, and they just finished writing their next book, and they sent it to their editor, and she was like, oh, I'll let my publisher or whatever, like, put you on the list to receive an ARC of the next book. And I was like, that's so cool.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Well, we'll see if it happens or not, but, like, just the fact of an author, like, responding to something that I,
that's nice.
Posted was really nice. I think those interactions are pretty cool.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do you want me to keep talking about the books I've been reading, or do you guys want to take turns?
Let's take turns. Karla, what have you been reading?
So, wait. I already said about my short story. Do you want to talk about one of your books?
I got one of my Libby books was This Summer Will Be Different, which is one of those books that's been very popular over summer, and it delivered. It was good. I really liked it. It was by Carly Fortune. It takes place in Canada, so it's between Toronto and Prince Edward Island, which I never had heard of, but apparently it's the setting for the Anne of Green Gables books. Yes, Karla.
How many jalapeno poppers would you give your book, Leigh?
Oh, you know what? It wasn't that spicy.
With all the cheating that was going on?
I know. It just, I guess it wasn't super graphic.
So many opportunities and none of them taken.
Yeah. All right. That's okay. I'm not, I don't know. That can go either way for me. Like, when they get really spicy, sometimes it's just, like, all about the spice and there's no story and the story sucks and you're like, this makes no sense.
Yeah. This book, This Summer Will Be Different, I put on here jalapeno poppers. There was some spice. There was a lot of spice.
How many poppers?
On a scale of
1 to 5.
1 to 5? I would say 4.
Oh, snap.
I think. Yeah, there were some pretty spicy scenes. Yeah, 3, 4.
I would give Silver Flames, which is the only spicy book I've ever read.
Yeah.
Well, no, ACOTAR in general. But Silver Flames, I would feel, is the one with the most jalapeno poppers.
I mean, I would give that a 5.
I would give that a 3.
Okay, maybe we're on different spice levels. That's pretty
yeah,
high.
it is, but but I'm sure that there's more. There has to be more
I
out
guess
there.
Silver Flames, I think, to me is pretty high.
This
one would be less than. Maybe we use Silver Flames as the barometer.
Well, no, because we have different views on what that is.
Yeah.
Aw, man.
Okay.
Okay.
So this summer will be different.
4 poppers.
There is Lucy, who's best friends with Bridget. Bridget is from Prince Edward Island. So this little island off the coast of Canada, which also happens to be where Anne of Green Gables is set. So there's like historical areas there that are mentioned in the book, and they have quotes from the Anne of Green Gables books. But Bridget's brother is Felix, who Lucy has had a crush on forever. So the trope there is obviously best friend's brother that she loves. But she goes back, so Lucy goes back and forth to Prince Edward Island for like Thanksgiving and holidays and summers, which I love. Like cabins and holidays and family traditions. Oh, yes. Please give me all of those things. So I feel like this book met all of those things. Like she would go back and spend Christmas with them or Thanksgiving with them. I love that. And obviously her and Felix have had the hots for each other. This book was, what I enjoyed was that there was spiciness from the very beginning. Like their relationship started right away. And then it kind of ebbed and flowed for the next like 5 or 6 years or something as they kind of came in and out of each other's lives. So it wasn't like this slow burn buildup where you're like, they're going to end up with each other. I mean, you know, they're going to end up with each other anyway. But I like that their relationship started at the very beginning, but it had to change and morph and evolve as the years went by.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Instead of like, it's just this linear progression towards getting together. They started out together in a sense, and then they kind of figured out how their relationship was going to go.
That sounds more real, because in real, you know, especially when you end up together, you do have some up and down usually.
Yeah.
It's not just like straight off to the races,
Yeah.
you know.
And in the book, Bridget is the sister and the best friend, and like one of her rules was like, don't fall in love with my brother. So their relationship was a secret the entire time, right?
Whoa,
so that was a big
5
part
or
of it.
6 years secret.
It's kind of ironic
Yeah.
about that is you want to, if you have siblings, you do want to be friends with your siblings'
Yeah.
significant others. Like you want to think the person is awesome, but if it is already your friend, maybe it's the worry that they're not going to work out or something.
Well, in this situation, Bridget had a best friend who fell in love with her brother, and they had gotten engaged, and then the fiance broke up with her brother, and she lost her best friend. So she's like, I can't lose another best friend to my brother, so don't fall in love with him. They weren't together for those 5 years. Like she would come and like stay with the family, and they would have a tryst.
Still, even though you're not with that person for all those years, you're still keeping a secret for that long.
Yes, which was very hard. But it was also, I kind of enjoyed also that they each had different relationships that they came in and out of, but they're still, like, you're still my person. I'm trying to live my life without you, but I can't because we have this intense connection.
So
it is so cute, Karla. I loved it.
I think I would like that one. Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. It was a book that I, was waiting on Libby for a while, and it was one of those books that lived up, I think, to the hype. And Felix drinks tea every morning.
You love it.
I love it. Should we circle back
Sure.
to you? Do you have another one?
So I am almost done with this book, but I already know how it ends. It's called The Old Lion, a novel of Theodore Roosevelt by Jeff Shara.
This is a memoir? Well, not a memoir, a biography.
No, so there are so many Theodore Roosevelt books in the world. My youngest daughter loved Theodore Roosevelt from the time of a very young age, and so we sort of had a family interest in him, and over the years I've learned a lot about him, and I actually read like a different biography of him earlier this year.
Did you guys on your summer trip end up at a museum?
Yes.
Right? That was, I remember you posted
yeah,
some pictures.
So she fell in love with him when we went to Mount Rushmore, and my mother-in-law bought her a book that was about how teddy bears came to be named after Theodore Roosevelt. And if you don't know the story, you didn't know that? Okay. So in a nutshell, he was out hunting with some guys. He wanted to shoot a bear. And then at that point, he was already either president or at least like on the way, governor or some kind of high up. So the guys like went and he, by the way, I mean, he grew up very privileged and wealthy anyway. So the guys that he was with went and like got a bear and like kind of disabled it. And it was sort of a young bear, like a baby.
Aw.
And when he saw the bear, he was like, this is not sport. I'm not going to shoot it. And that story got picked up in all the newspapers. And then, like, not too long after, a store in the Northeast, I wish I could remember his day, I think like Maryland or something, started making these teddy bears. Bears were a children's toy, but they weren't called teddy bears, but then they called them
Interesting.
Teddy's bears. So this book was all about that, and that really made my youngest, like, just fall in love with Theodore Roosevelt. But she would tell us she had dreamed where she, like, shot and ate a bear. So maybe she
Ooh.
kind of like you. She liked it. She was excited. So anyway, so we've always had this thing about Theodore Roosevelt, and then we had this idea when, again, this was maybe like 8 years ago, quite a while back, maybe 10 years ago, that we were going to have the kids write to their favorite president.
Oh.
And her favorite president, of course, was Theodore Roosevelt. There's no official Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library. And my husband did some research, and there's a Theodore Roosevelt Center at Dickinson University in North Dakota. Mm-hmm. And she wrote a letter to them, and they were so excited. They posted it on their Instagram.
Oh my gosh.
They sent
How
her
cool as a
this
kid.
care package back with like a certificate and a
Oh
little
my
teddy
God.
bear and a book and a magnet and all this cool stuff, right? And we're like, this is awesome. These people are really cool. And so ever since then, we really wanted to go there, and we're trying to take our kids to all 50 states.
Yeah.
2 years ago, we had planned on doing a road trip. Our family's originally from Wisconsin. We go there every summer. And we've been taking advantage of this 50 state thing to like road trip to Wisconsin instead of fly.
Ooh.
And so we started from here in California. We drove up the coast, and we went to all these national parks and stuff. It was really cool. We went to Seattle, Portland, Seattle, and then we cut over, went through Idaho, and we were hiking in Glacier National Park, and I started feeling sick. And I was like, you guys, I think I have COVID. Ha ha ha.
Oh no.
And then it was just sort of like allergy type symptoms. I don't know. Then that night I woke up, I had a horrible fever,
Oh,
and
no.
I did have COVID.
No.
And we had to turn around.
Oh.
Well, this only because we had planned on going to North Dakota the next day, and I had been in touch with the people at the center.
Oh no.
And they were going to give us a tour and all this stuff. So I had to email them back and say, I'm so sorry, we cannot come because I have COVID, right? Flash forward to this last summer, we did a different road trip and went to Wisconsin, and then kind of planned to do a little bit the reverse of the part of that trip that we had missed, going to Minnesota and North Dakota. And I again messaged the center, and it's actually better timing because they opened a new like gallery area and everything. And they are so cool there. The main guy that I have been talking with, he got out all this really interesting, like these little old, I don't know what they're called. They're kind of like these slides that you put on these old-timey glasses where you can look out. They're kind of like...
I know what you're talking about. I love those.
Yeah.
And you do the clicky thing, and it makes the slide move over.
Yes.
Love it.
But it's just like a two-guy thing on these old glasses. It's not like sort of like the viewfinder thing with the circle, but it's just like I don't know. He got those out. He got out this old like phonograph that I think belonged to Theodore Roosevelt, like the wax thing where you make music and you turn it, and he played it for us.
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, I can't remember what those are called either.
How cool.
Yeah, so anyway, he got out all this really awesome stuff, and I got to meet him. I was like, by now,
this
this
was
guy
like
at the
a
center is
special-
also a celebrity to me, right?
That's like a special access thing.
And
It's
he
not
gave
like
my
something that everyone gets.
Yeah, they gave my daughter a mug and all this cool stuff. So my family's
Aw.
really into Theodore Roosevelt. But so my husband really likes Jeff Shara, who is, he does like a lot of really fact-based historical novels.
Okay.
A lot about like Civil War, but he's also done like Revolutionary War, George Washington, all kind of stuff. I haven't read a single book of his because frankly, war bores me so much.
Well, Karla spoke about the nuclear.
I really want to go back to that book,
Yeah.
and I looked at it again.
Yeah.
I looked at it.
You're like, no.
And
not
when they
right
talk
now.
about like battle tactics and stuff, I'm like, oh my god! I read half of Ulysses S. Grant's autobiography, and it just like we went here, we went up this ridge,
No.
Yeah.
we went down here. I was like, and it was like 500 pages.
No.
I was
No.
like, I am not reading the other half, the other
Yeah.
500, and there was no like, there was very little like of his
plot or
own personal
story
opinion
or-
or anything.
yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, this particular book, though, so it's like a biographical novel. So some parts are a little fictionalized, only in that obviously you can't tell necessarily what exactly someone was thinking or the exact conversation. But
Yeah.
with Theodore Roosevelt, we have so many. He was prolific writer, journal keeper, letter writer. So there's.
I love historical fiction like that, where it's
Yeah.
it's a story that keeps you engaged, but you're learning about
Yes.
something that did happen or situations. I find those a lot more engaging than a dry kind of.
Yeah, and
this
I'm
and then that.
liking it a lot. It goes over his whole life, so at the end, spoiler alert, he dies. Which we're getting to. But, I mean, from the beginning, they tell you that's going to happen. But it's gone into, spent a lot of time on his time at ranching in North Dakota. Some of the national park stuff. He started so many different things as president that I didn't realize. And
Yeah.
when he was like 55 years old, and he died when he was like 60, he did this expedition in Brazil and explored this whole river that's still named after him.
Oh, wow.
And he almost died to the point where he was doing so badly, and he got like a big leg infection and stuff, and he was like, just leave me here, I'll die here, it's fine, you guys just keep going. Because
No
like
way.
the whole, like, things were just going wrong, they were running out of food, all this kind of stuff. He had like a bottle of morphine that he carried with him that he was like, I'm
Carla's
gonna...
like, all right, I'm out.
So that was like fascinating. I did not know that about
Yeah.
him. And so, yeah, I do recommend this book. That's
yeah.
good.
What was it
Yeah.
called again?
It's called The Old Lion by Jeff Shara, Shaara.
It's been a while since I've read like a memoir or something like
Yeah.
that. Carla, you have It Waits in the Woods.
Yeah, so I have It Waits in the Woods, and it's by Josh Mallerman, who also wrote Incidents Around at the House, which is the one with Other Mommy that I talked about in the previous episode.
Okay.
It's a short story, and it doesn't count as a book.
It does not. We've
unfortunately.
decided.
However, holy smokes.
Did it give
this
you all
one,
the spooky?
It gave me a spooky because
Because it was short?
No, it gave me a spooky because, like, okay, I was listening to audio and I was brushing my teeth at night. I was minding my own business, and then
I just want all of you listeners to know that Carla was miming brushing her teeth.
And then all of a sudden, as I was mid brush, the
back teeth or the front teeth?
the front teeth.
Okay.
Okay, so I was mid brush, and the lady that was reading the book to your ears does the voice of the creature that's in the woods, and
Ugh.
it got me. I
Yeah?
was like, ah!
Did you get
With,
goosies? Did you get chicken
with
skin?
like all the toothpaste and all my brush, and I was like, oh no. So I had to stop. I had to pause because I was like, I can't continue brushing my teeth and be scared at the same time.
Maybe the shaking would have been good.
Oh. So then I had to pause, and I was like, I'm going to text Alex, and then I was like, no, don't, just give it a second.
Just let it pass.
And so I finished brushing my teeth, and I went back to it. Oh my God. That voice is like super effed up. Okay.
Is it used continuously in the short story? Carla's got palpitations just thinking about it.
It was so well done. She did such a good, like, creepy voice. It got me. It got me.
You know what got me is that mosquito that we had in here.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
no.
Ugh. It got me. Sorry, go ahead.
That's like a danger of an audiobook, because that would never happen with just reading, right? I mean,
True.
Exactly. I would have been like,
That experience would have been so
have
different.
my face? And I'd be
especially
like,
if you can't visualize, you're not imagining the sound of the voice, right?
It would just be a creature saying, do you have my face? But that's not what happened. I heard it. And then,
Can you still hear it now?
no, I can't.
Oh.
Oh my God, but it was so good. I recommend it.
This is It Waits in the Woods.
It Waits in the Woods by Josh Mallerman. It's super duper short. And one thing that I did not know, and I did look it up because I was like, where is this? It's, boop, 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 boop. It keeps saying that it's happening in a UNF. U, N as in Nancy, F as in Frank. And I was like, is that like a reservation? Is that a reservation?
Did you look it up?
I did, and it says that it stands for Unified Fine Pitch, which is
There's
not.
got to be another.
Yeah,
Yeah, it can't be
University of North Florida?
I don't think so either. So I thought that maybe the fact that it might have been a reservation may have explained why when somebody goes missing at the UNF, the police didn't really pay much attention to it. I mean, they did search for the person, but then it got kind of like, okay, well, off she went, off she popped. So
I'm so curious now what that is.
I was too, because it kept mentioning that it happened at the UNF woods, and that
you sure it's not University of Northern Florida?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, weird stuff happens in Florida sometimes.
It really does. But it has this like legend of this creature that is looking for its face, and it so and that creature ends up having this main character's sister.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
So it's a good short story.
Okay.
It hits you with a little punch.
Ooh.
And just don't be brushing your teeth.
Don't brush your teeth while you're
Don't listen to it, I would say.
Oh,
Read it. Don't listen to it.
Do listen to it, because
depends on if you want to be.
Well, I mean, that's why you read a scary story. You want the spookies.
Also, if you're hearing this podcast and now wondering, you're not going to know if you just read it.
Oh my God, please do. Please listen to it.
No, if it makes you feel better, I did in college. I was reading scary stories to tell in the dark, and there's one where, if you guys remember, have you read that? I'm sure, yeah. There's the one where
saying yes.
they put the suit on the wrong dead person. Remember the yeah. So it's like the funeral home. The woman goes to look at the body. He looks great, but he's wearing the wrong suit. That's not his suit.
That's creepy.
And the way they fixed it
is by changing the head.
Yes. And that night I had a dream that a doctor was chasing after me with a giant scissors trying to cut my head off.
See, no thank you. No thank you. But yes, I'll give the genre a try.
It is a very fast way of fixing the problem.
Right. I think it was like right before the service.
Oh, it's right before the
I
service?
think it was sort of like, you know.
You have to have a fast solution. That was
You've got to.
That was quick thinking.
I mean, we don't really do it that much anymore. Most people get cremated or something.
Yeah.
But I think, like, if you are traditionally embalmed and stuff, I think your family goes and looks at you, like, kind of like a half hour before the rest of it is going to start.
I don't like it.
Have you ever been to, like, an open casket?
No.
Yes.
Thing? I remember going to one when I was really little. A couple, actually.
Several, yeah. My grandma died of cancer when I was in high school. And she was not the first open casket funeral I'd gone to. But her mouth, I will just never forget it. It just looked sort of weird. And it bothered me. I really, like, that was the last time I saw her, and she didn't look like herself. I mean, usually they do a great job, and the person looks peaceful and restful, but
they have to prop it up so that it stays.
They have
closed.
all kinds of tricks. Yeah. I know.
So
It'd be maybe a different podcast. I have some creepy stories about that too.
Oh snap!
Oh.
Do you guys have any others?
Yeah.
Oh, I do too.
One more. I have an actual book, not a short story.
Not a short.
Which is See What I Have Done by Sarah Schmidt, and it is about Lizzie Borden, and that book was so good. It goes from 4 different perspectives. It's from Lizzie Borden's perspective, her sister, the housekeeper, and a guy named Benjamin.
Ooh, I love me a Benji.
No, he's bad.
Okay, I don't.
Okay, so in it's from those 4 different perspectives. Benjamin has been hired by the uncle to go and like basically rough up Lizzie's dad, so that Lizzie's dad treats both sisters better financially. Apparently.
Okay.
And so he like kind of like stows away into the house by coming in through a side door when he finally sees something open, and Lizzie is psycho.
Okay.
I
no
hate
other
her.
way to say it.
She is the worst. So like
the face you just made. Too bad this isn't.
She sucks so hard. She sucks. So unlikable. There's nothing redeeming about her.
Nothing redeeming. Okay.
Their mother died when she was very young, and so the sister.
No sympathy for her there?
None. So,
How old was she?
She was 7. She was a little bit younger than 7 because at the age of 7, their father remarries.
Okay.
And so that's now Mrs. Borden. But when she was younger, both sisters kind of accepted this lady as their mom, but something happened and they started calling her Mrs. Borden, and they did not like her anymore. So the point is that like the sister has now been taking care of Lizzie, and I guess she promised the mom that she was going to look after her, which brought me to a point where it's like deathbed promises are not to be had. I
100% agree.
Too much guilt involved?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Lizzie uses the fact that her sister's taking care of her and that her sister's older to like ruin her life. She just like, I hate Lizzie Borden. I hate her. She ruins her marriage prospect. She is like super obsessed with her. Like she's possessive of her. And I just dislike her very much. And the dad is not great. He smacks Lizzie because I think that the dad is just like over having like 2 grown adult women that he probably thought were going to be off and married in his household. And the mom, Mrs. Borden, who's not the real mom, is probably like trying to like have like them leave as well, but that's not happening. Lizzie's like there. She's entrenched. And the sister just wants out, but like she's entrenched too because of Lizzie. Anyway, the point is that I feel like women in those days were like super duper bored. And of course they're going to lose their minds because they were like in the house all day, doing anything. Especially since they had a housekeeper. They didn't even have housework to like, I don't know, take them out of their crazy. So Lizzie totally did it. Lizzie totally did it. I mean, she lost it. She fucked them up. Ugh. Like the mom, not mom, Mrs. Borden gets found, and she is like just gross. They find pieces of her skull. Okay, and then the dad, he gets it too. She goes at them with like an axe or a hatchet or whatever, and then she like doesn't remember. Supposedly, I think she remembers, but she. Supposedly she doesn't remember, and like at the end of the book it's like saying how like she remembers that she was washing blood out of her hands to the point where she's like, did I even have blood on my hands? And it's like, bitch, you killed your parents. So anyway,
so you liked it?
The book.
Okay.
So this is historical fiction as well then.
Okay.
Historical biography
but
type.
She gets found not guilty. Like in real life she was found not guilty.
Well, I mean, that happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there you go. I give it 4 stars.
So you are going to rate every book, Karla.
She is on the podcast.
Okay, so I think we have a few minutes probably to wrap up. Do you want to share your last read?
I am almost finished with Untamed by Glennon Doyle, and I was super excited to read this because
that's an actress, right?
I think she's sort of an activist, and she has a podcast I listen to sometimes. I'm not really sure what her whole deal is, to be honest. But I was really excited to read it because when I picked it up, I think I had taken a picture earlier this year of like, oh, here's what I have on my shelf that I'm going to read. And a lot of people were like, oh my God, that's the best book. Ooh. And it's kind of a series of short stories about realizations she has had. So she's a person who grew up pretty privileged, but also kind of was always trying to fit herself into the box and doing the thing that she was supposed to be doing. So she's trying to get straight A's. She was bulimic from like the age of 11 because and she got married, and then she tried to become like the perfect wife, but she also had a drug addiction and alcohol issues. And then when she became pregnant, she was able to stop drinking. But I guess she referenced it in this book, but I didn't know. Like, throughout that process, she was also popular, wrote other books about how, like, she overcame addiction for her family and making family number one. And she was, like, a big, like, Christian woman type. And then, but her marriage was having issues, and her husband had some affairs. And then
like multiple.
she still was, like, working through it. And I wrote, like, another book about how they worked through it or something.
Dang.
And then she went to some writers' conference and met the soccer player Abby Wambach.
Oh, yeah.
And they, like, immediately were like, I'm in love with this person. Yeah.
Oh.
And so, and I mean, just real life. And they're on that podcast together. I mean, it is a good podcast. It's, We Can Do Hard Things. Anyway, so she and Abby fall in love, but she has to basically, like, deconstruct her life. That, you know, she knows this is going to hurt her kids. She knows it's going to impact her career, because obviously some of their followers, some Christians don't believe in that lifestyle, all kinds of stuff. So it's just like a whole thing, right? So, I mean, it's interesting. The book, I go back and forth. Some of it is, like, really, like, wow, you feel really seen just as a woman in society, some of the topics she touches on.
Yeah.
And then other stuff is like, yeah, you were just, like, super privileged that you could do that or whatever. It feels a little preachy to me at times.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of in the middle. I'll probably give it, like, 4 stars, but
That's how I felt.
Yeah.
Did you ever read Girl, Wash Your Face?
no, but I have heard about that one. Yeah.
It was kind of like that, where, some of the stuff was interesting, but a lot of it seemed really aggrandizing, if that's the right word.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I don't know. I didn't like it, and it kind of turned me off from those kinds of memoirs a little bit. And it seems, I don't know, I haven't read any of those, but it's like, oh, everything is a book.
Yeah, it's
right?
sort of like
all of these different things in her life. It's an opportunity for.
Yeah, it's sort of like a memoir and self-help. And I mean, for her, that's what she needs to do, I think, to work through everything.
Yeah.
Is really expose everything and tell the truth, especially with her. And she talks about that, especially with her addiction issues. Like, she can't hide. It's not good for her to hide anything, right, from herself or other people. But I think where it kind of the drawback is some of the things that she really strongly believes are universal, I feel like are maybe not for everybody, not for her. It's not as easy for everyone. I mean, for her, I wondered, like, would she still be in that marriage if she had never met Abby?
Right. She would
have
never.
I mean? It's not like
it seems like it if you're saying that she worked through multiple affairs with her husband.
Yeah. I mean, she clearly wasn't happy, and maybe something else would have happened. But her meeting Abby was like this light bulb moment and the catalyst where it's not necessarily that as hard as, I'm sure it was really hard. And they didn't just immediately, like, start dating. She dissolved her marriage first, and then they got together. But it just sort of seems like, if you didn't have something that you were going towards, would you have done that?
Yeah.
Would you have been able to do that? Even if it ended up being better for you in the end.
Interesting. So you haven't finished it yet?
No, I have maybe, 60 pages to go. But it's a series of, like, very short essays. And some of them are excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I picture my memoir being someday. Little vignettes of my life.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah. I've started it.
You've started it?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cute. It's more of like a little outline. Okay. Who knows? Someday I picture myself in a little cabin somewhere, writing my little stories. I feel like I need the right setting.
Do you write on a computer or by hand?
On a computer, I have like a Google Doc where I just kind of dump ideas.
Okay.
Of something that, who knows, maybe someday. But that's how I picture it, like little stories, not like a novel.
Yeah. That's kind of how the mini Kaling things are too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like those.
Those work because you get to really focus on a specific time or subject, and I think it's.
I feel like it's satisfying to read too if the author's good at connecting everything, because you feel like you're reading it really fast.
Yeah. I think the first time that occurred to me, like, oh, I could do something like this, was reading, I think it's called I Miss You When I Blink. What's the author? She also wrote Bomb Shelter, I think. I can't believe I'm spacing on her name. Mary Laura Philpott. But but that was her style of writing, and it was the first time that I identified with someone's like writing style. I was like, oh, that's how I would write if I did it, which led me to like, oh, maybe like if she could write about little vignettes on her story or like her life.
Do you guys feel like infused with the personality of the book you're reading sometimes? Like, if I'm reading a heavy book, sometimes I notice I'll start being in a worse mood. Like, you get the dreams at least, right?
True.
So I have felt like that too. Like, and then if you read something that's really up or happy, it makes you feel good, and you start thinking that way. Or, oh, I could write a book that I read, but I almost feel like I would need to read that person. Or make sure I'm in that frame before I would sit down at the computer. Or
I definitely think what I'm reading kind of affects me a little bit. Maybe I'll have to save this topic for another episode.
I can just keep emailing you topics.
Sounds good. Keep joining us. You're right down the street anyway. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome, guys. This was awesome. Sorry I'm such a talker.
No, I love
we
it.
hope that you enjoyed your time.
I did.
Okay.
Thank you for listening, everybody. Happy
Thank you.
reading.
Bye.
Bye.